Good evening and happy holidays, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Two Way Tonight, special holiday edition. Glad to have you here, whether you're watching here on the Two Way platform or perhaps on X or YouTube. We couldn't be more grateful to share a little Yuletide joy with you here on this program. Thank you for being part of it. If you're here on the Two Way platform, you'd like to get a question in, please raise your hand. We'd love to have you. Have had lots of new people earlier today on the morning meeting. We'd love some new folks here, as well as great returning guests, members of the community. So please raise your hand. And if you're watching on X or YouTube, remember our ethos here is a little different than what you might see on a cable yelling program. We're about peace, love, and understanding, extending the presumption of grace to all, and sharing thoughts. And if you hear something on the program you don't like, rather than sending me an email saying you'll never watch again, say, if you must clutter my inbox, send me an email and say, Mark, thank you for exposing me to a point of view that I had not considered, with which I vociferously agree, but it's delightful to hear from a different American citizen things I may not have known. Our guest tonight, and this is a convention of TV to praise the guests to the heavens and say, oh, they're the best guests ever. I will say there are no two guests I like more. Notice what I did there. No two guests I like more than our two guests tonight. And I love when they come on in combination. Adam Mockler of MeidasTouch and Amber Duke of the Daily Caller. They're both brilliant people, and they're both thoughtful and respectful. They're perfect for this platform. And sometimes we have them both booked, and then one of them has some conflict, the flu or work, and then we don't get them both. So delighted that tonight we have them both back. I guess this is maybe the third time they've been on here together, maybe fourth. I don't know. I've lost count. All I can tell you is I couldn't be happier to have them here. They'll be here in a moment. The biggest news today largely revolved around the horrible events from the weekend in Boulder, Colorado. Lots of reaction to that. And we're going to talk about that from all angles. A little bit of developments regarding Senator Fetterman and a little bit of developments regarding the reconciliation bill. A few other things, but mostly we're going to be talking about this Boulder incident today. But first, number 13, just to get this out of the way, the White House unveiled a new portrait today of a certain gentleman, goes by the name of DJT. Here it is. All right, you want to I didn't understand that kind of an Austin Powers vibe. Here's a closer look at that, number 14. And take this full, Sam. Get rid of me so everybody can see. Is that it? Is that 14? Oh, there we go. That's number 14. I gotta say, put that back up. I gotta say, again, what limited insight I can offer you about America's 47th president. That's exactly how Donald Trump would want you to see him, except what's going on the left side there? Is that some sort of like sideburn? What is that? You see what I'm talking about? Sam, help me out here. What is that? It's like
Light.
it's the light. The light. It looks like his eyebrow has
Yeah.
Like a
grown.
shadow.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it looks crappy, that part. The rest of it's exactly the way you'd want to look, but I don't understand that. Everybody's telling me the light. I don't understand. Light. It looks like a caterpillar crawled on the side of his face. Anyway, show 13 again. I can't get enough of the White House video. I don't understand the Austin Powers vibe, but I do like it. There we go. I don't know why I like that so much. I'll probably be showing it throughout the show. So if you don't like it, maybe look elsewhere. All right, let's bring in our guests. As I said, two outstanding journalists who are so generous with their time. The Daily Caller's Amber Duke is back. Amber, believe it or not, we have more viewers than when you heard last time. So tell people a little bit about you and how you became a journalist, please. Well, can't hear Amber. That's unfortunate. Amber, this is going to be a bad program.
How about now?
Much better, please.
Okay,
Well,
great. I don't know how these fancy microphones work,
yeah,
so apparently I had muted it. But
yeah.
I got started just after college working for Campus Reform. Did a about 3 year stint at the Daily Caller covering media and the first Trump administration. Spent 5 years at the Spectator as the Washington editor, and then returned home to the Daily Caller back in January to serve as the senior editor.
Senior editor. That's your fancy title, senior editor.
That's right. Almost as
So,
fancy as this microphone.
so how long have you been a journalist?
I started in 2016, so coming up on a decade.
Wow. And do you think your whole career you'll be a journalist, or you might do something else?
I'll probably drop out and have kids.
Huh. Is that true? Is that true? That's where
That's the plan. That's the plan.
okay, interesting. Well, we'll miss you in journalism, but I'm sure you'll be a
Thank
great
you.
parent.
Maybe I'll be
I,
part-time.
I get called by young people all the time and ask for career advice. And I talked to someone the other day, and this person went on and on about how they want to be a journalist. They asked me incredibly minute details about how to become a journalist or a commentator. But it's like I got to work in this field. I love the whole thing. Da 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 da. Da. Gave them a lot of advice. And Adam, this person called me or sent me an email today, and they said, "I'm running for Congress." They said your advice to me really clarified things. I'm going to run for Congress, and I thought, whoa, I'm not that good at selling my business. Adam, welcome back. Thanks to you and to Amber. Tell folks how you got into the journalism racket.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with Amber again. I started going to a bunch of Trump rallies during the Iowa caucuses, and I went to rally after rally
You're
and
reactivated.
documented a lot of good conversations.
I'll tell you to stop following.
Hold on. No, I think you need to mute unless you're trying to drown out Adam's origin story. Go
It's all
ahead,
good.
Adam.
Not everyone has a fancy mic.
Are you from were you from Iowa or you were just like where when you started going to
I
the
grew up in Indiana. I grew up in
Yeah.
Northwest Indiana. I started going out to Iowa. It's a really interesting story how it all came together, but that's for another episode. And then I began to gain a lot of traction on YouTube, which is an emerging space in like the left-wing media area. And then MeidasTouch picked me up. Since then, I've been covering a lot of events. I've been out to DC almost on a weekly basis since the admin started. So it's just been like fast-paced, yeah.
Yeah. And do you think you'll be a journalist forever, or are you also going to quit and become a mom?
Yeah,
You
I
can do
mean,
that now.
Yeah.
us liberals, yeah. I mean, I can quit and do whatever I want. I can become whatever I want. No, I mean, like, I really like being in the digital media space. I really like talking politics, debating politics. I think that I'll be in the space for a while, but I don't even know if journalism is what I plan on doing in 10 years. I don't know. I'm so young, so
Okay.
got a lot
All
of
right.
time.
Two honest answers. One more question, and then we'll go to the news. And again, if you want to get in the conversation, please raise your hand. Amber, if you were forced to be the host for a full season of any reality show that's ever been on, what show would it be?
Survivor.
Survivor, the classic, the granddaddy of them all.
I love it.
Yeah. Adam.
Any reality show.
Yeah.
Survivor popped in my head, but
Yeah.
let me see. Maybe like Fear Factor. That's something that I used to watch
It's so
before Joe
funny.
Rogan
So
showed.
funny. It's so funny. I was Fair Factor would be high on my list too, because I would just say, eat that spider. Just eat it. Eat
You
it
could be
now.
the host, but hell no, I would never be the person
Never
on
be
the other
contested.
side.
And
Yeah.
Amber, what's the name of the guy who hosted Survivor? Jeff Probst? Is that his name?
Probst.
Probst. He's very good. I really
He is
admire
very good.
his sense of how to do that, whatever that'd be called, hosting, I guess, whatever. Anyway, grateful to you both as always for being on. Let me just start, Amber, you first. Just your general view of forget the media coverage, just the facts on the ground in Boulder. Just how do you feel about what happened as a signal event in America's history or in the current moment?
God, it's so disturbing, especially in concert with just a few weeks ago, the assassination of the Israeli diplomat and the embassy staffer in Washington, D.C. In this case, you have, again, another guy who engaged in a targeted killing. He had apparently been planning this attack for quite some time, knew that these pro-Israel protesters gathered every Sunday in Boulder for their walk or their march, whatever you want to call it, and had employed some kind of homemade flamethrower device, as well as 14 Molotov cocktails they found in his car. And the images of these elderly individuals, all of the victims were over the age of 55, just in the fetal position on the ground. The descriptions from bystanders is so beyond horrific. And also the fact that this guy had overstayed a visa that was granted to him during the Biden administration. He was given a work permit even after overstaying his visa, which he also overstayed. So I think obviously the Trump administration has a lot of fodder from this, both on the deportations of some student visa holders, as well as the mass deportation, getting rid of anybody who is in the country illegally. This guy hit like two birds with one stone, essentially, with everything that the Trump administration has been saying in terms of deriding the left's policies.
Adam, general
Yeah,
thoughts.
Amber is very correct about the repeated pattern of anti-Semitism manifesting all throughout America. It could be a function of a lot of things. I don't know what the case is with Solomon, but I think algorithms are right now perpetuating a lot of anti-Semitism. We're seeing uniquely impressionable and easily radicalized people going out in the streets and doing these things over and over. Like Aaron Bushnell, remember him a few years back? I feel like since then we've seen a lot of in-person events in the United States. And I'm not going to say that I think our enemies benefit a lot when they can stoke fear and anger in our algorithms and have stuff like this manifest. He did enter in 2022 on a B2 visa, and then his work permit expired in March. The Trump admin did not deport him, but Trump still came out immediately with a post saying he came in through Biden's open borders, which is a weird, tricky way to say he actually had a visa, right? And Trump did the same thing when there was a New Orleans attack on January 1st. Someone ran through a parade. And I think within hours, Trump tweeted out, this was an illegal person who came over the border. That wasn't even true in that case either. So Trump immediately tries to divert blame and weaponize it when I think overall there's a conversation about anti-Semitism that's more important here than whether Biden caused it.
Just Adam, just to be clear, go through the facts as you understand them again about his immigration status and the timing.
From my understanding, he entered on a visa in 2022. That expired, and then he got a work permit, which also expired in March, late March of this year, March 28th of this year. And then from then he's been illegal. He's been here illegally. And the Trump mass deportation raid didn't catch him, despite the government having them on his records, having him on the records.
Right, but by that chronology, and that matches vaguely with what I've read, but I haven't done any reporting of my own. By that chronology, both administrations would be responsible for his presence here, correct?
No, I was trying to say I don't think I've. I mean, I think the more important conversation is about anti-Semitism.
No, I understand.
Trump has this repeated pattern as well of immediately diverting responsibility either on Biden or the last admin when neither in New Orleans. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I do.
I do. And then he did the same thing today. Is it fair for Trump to say this was like an open border Biden? I was just responding to Trump's criticism of Biden.
Understood. Amber, is it fair for President Trump to say this is a Biden problem?
Well, if the guy is overstaying a visa and then you respond not by removing him, but by giving him permission to work here, that seems pretty directly responsible to me.
Adam,
why didn't Trump remove him though, if he was on the government's radar?
He should remove him, and I appreciate that Stephen Miller has been saying that they need to ramp up the pace of the mass deportation program.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask, Adam, I take your point, and it's a good one. If you ask the Trump administration, they would say there are lots of people here who they'd like to remove. They just haven't found them all yet.
Right.
So here's Caroline Levitt today, number 3, talking about her view of who's to blame for this.
What's the White House's perspective on this?
Well, FBI Director Kash Patel is absolutely right. And the president just put out a very strong statement condemning this attack. This terrorist came into our country under the previous administration. Joe Biden's administration foolishly gave him a tourist visa and that allowed him to unlawfully remain in our country. This individual should have been deported. Instead, he was welcomed here. And now, 3 years later, after coming to this country under Joe Biden's administration, he is lighting Jewish people on fire who were simply trying to peacefully pay respect to the hostages in Israel. This absolutely is an act of targeted terrorism. The FBI and the Department of Justice are investigating it as such, and the president is going to ensure that this individual is held to the fullest extent of the law. And not just this individual, but any individual, especially illegal criminals who engage in acts of terrorism, will be held accountable under this president.
Adam, did she say anything you disagree with or question?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit late to hold him accountable. I mean, yeah, you can now, but it's just she's being performatively angry because they failed to deport someone and it looks bad, like Amber said. I mean, it goes against what they're saying. Here's the thing. I think it's really fun and easy to play the blame game and say like, oh, Caroline Levitt is wrong about it being Biden. It's actually Trump's fault. But overall, there's like a deeper problem with anti-Semitism that is bubbling up beyond which administration is in power.
True. Amber.
Is that fair?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both problems, though.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
they're both legitimate problems.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just go back to the Biden administration, letting in 100 people who were on a terror watch list. I mean, how many people like this guy who weren't on the terror watch list, but maybe hold terroristic sentiments or could become radicalized or who have violent tendencies? have been allowed that we don't know about, right? This guy wasn't on the watch list, but was still let in through this visa program, overstayed it. And I think, if anything, Adam, your point about the Trump administration not deporting him between March and June when he committed this attack would actually bolster the administration's desire to deport criminals more rapidly.
Amber,
I think that they should be more
ahead.
surgical when
Yeah.
they're deporting these criminals. I mean, we've seen a lot of resources spent on targeting people with student visas and then doing this weird flip-flop game where then now they're actually like following what the courts are saying and allowing the student visas to be granted. And then now they're attacking Harvard. They could allocate these resources maybe towards being more surgical and not deporting people with no due process, playing this weird game with habeas petitions. We could talk about Abrego Garcia, but I mean, yeah, I mean, if the Trump admin wanted to deport this guy, I don't think we would throw up a fight unless it was without due process, which he seems to be doing. But yeah, if he wants to surgically deport people, sure.
Well, the student visa process is done through the State Department, and deportations are at the behest of DHS and DOJ. So those are two separate groups of resources that you're talking about.
I understand.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand that like it's two separate resources, but I think that Trump is doing a lot of performative stuff, and now he knows that this looks bad on the admin. I mean, wasn't there a whole ICE raid with Dr. Phil? Why didn't Dr. Phil catch this guy? If Trump is doing all these like performative televised crackdowns. Yeah.
If we're talking about your assertion that anti-Semitism is the deeper problem, though, then why do you have the issue with getting rid of radical students on campus who don't have any right to be studying in the US? It's a privilege. And if they abuse that right, or that privilege rather, then send them home. You can't be here supporting a terrorist group.
Didn't the Trump admin end up going back and end up like giving them their visas back?
They're complying with the courts, which I assume is what you would like.
Okay,
right?
so if the
because
Trump
of
admin
separation of powers,
if the Trump admin proved that there were repeated anti-Semitic like actions coming out of these students, why were the visas given back by the courts?
well, the courts didn't rule on the whether or not the students were anti-Semitic. They said that the Trump administration didn't have a right to do it, which I obviously disagree with, and the Trump administration is appealing that decision.
What proof was there that the students were anti-Semitic?
Well, that'd be a case-by-case thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so Trump en masse violating the due process clause strips all of these student visas away, and you're just going to say that now it's a case-by-case basis. I don't know. It's just like, is there?
He didn't violate their due process.
You make a good point. I mean, Adam, as you know, there's a general view now raised by the circumstances that have come before us that a lot of Americans say people don't have a right to study in the United States. If they're not American citizens, they're here on student visas, those can be revoked. I'm not saying that's my position, but there's a lot of people in the country who feel that, including the Secretary of State. Put up number 4, please, who believe that they have the absolute right to revoke student visas whenever they want without due process or rigorous fact-finding. Marco Rubio, in light of yesterday's horrific attack, all terrorists, their family members, and terrorist sympathizers here on a visa should know under the Trump administration, we will find you, revoke your visa, and deport you. And that's one standard for terrorist sympathizers, but I think they're defining it broadly. Anyone who speaks favorably about Hamas, I think this administration would say we can deport you if you're here on a student visa or some other temporary basis. I want to ask both of you a question that you may find difficult or not, but I want to press you both on separate points, and then we'll move on to something else. Amber, would it be better for America if Donald Trump didn't use occasions like this to divide? Would it be preferable to you if he used this as an occasion to inspire and unite the country rather than divide?
I actually think it's really important to call out problems when we see them, and willful ignorance or blindness to the policies that have gotten us into these situations doesn't help anybody.
But isn't it possible to do both? Can't you put a spotlight on it, but also try to ask us to speak to our better angels and rather than just attack the libs?
Well, I thought his initial statement was fine, and the White House statement did that.
All right.
Is there any example of Trump ever having like self-reflection after an event like this, or does he always just attack Biden?
What self-reflection is he supposed to do here?
It's always attack mode. Didn't you say that some onus falls on the Trump admin?
No. Oh,
you think none falls on the Trump admin with this?
No, I do not.
For not deporting him after his work permit expired?
Well, again, they would say there's just too many to get everybody out.
Right.
But
there's 20 million here. I don't fault them for not happening to catch this guy before he decided to wield a flamethrower on elderly people.
Adam, here's what I want to ask.
He's responsible for that. No.
Here's what I want to ask you with the same posture I had asked Amber, the question I asked her. I continue to be amazed that people on the left, including in the media, don't seem to have genuine moral indignation and outrage that people in the United States are harmed by people in the country illegally. Like to so many people, including to me, that's like I'm indignant about it. I mean, I our federal government is supposed to keep us safe, and they're letting people over the border who are murdering or grievously wounding, attacking American citizens who have a right to be protected. And I know you'd say I denounce the attack, but what I'm confused about is, with few exceptions, I don't hear moral indignation from the left about this or in the media. The media is constantly describing this guy as the father of five, talk about how he planned the attack for a long time. To me and to tens of millions, the most seminal fact about him is that he was here illegally. So am I wrong? Am I missing the moral indignation that's coming from the left and the media on this, or no?
I think that Democrats should take a stronger stance on stuff like this. I think that with Republicans, they can veer into performativeness. I mean, there's a lot of
leave. I totally agree
leave
with you.
Republicans out.
Leave
Okay,
the
I got you, I
performative.
got
It's not something. I mean, one of the things I like about you is you're at least one quarter Vulcan. Like you are calm about everything. You're rational, but this is an issue that I don't understand calm and rational. Like the people are spitting mad over this piece of it, and it's barely discussed by the left. It's almost as if they want to hide the fact that this guy was here illegally rather than putting it front and center. Am I wrong? Am I missing it?
I mean, I can't answer regarding your media question, the media calling him a father of five. I haven't seen it that much with this one. I feel like CNN has come down pretty hard. Like every news station I've seen has been like, yeah, this is messed up. Yeah, I mean, the left should go harder. Is there a missing layer of moral indignation? I don't think so. I mean, here's the thing. Yes, Democrats should be talking about this issue more. But the question I would ask, that I generally ask, is like, are these illegal immigrants committing crimes at higher rates than any other group?
It doesn't matter for us. I speak for tens of millions.
Mhm.
One is too many. I don't care about the rate. I don't care about the absolute number. One is too many. The government's supposed to protect the border and not let people in here illegally who will commit crimes. I go back to Joe Biden at the State of the Union when he was forced to talk about Laken Riley. And he did it like under duress rather than saying with moral outrage and acknowledgement of failure.
What's so unique about that case, though? Sorry to cut you off, but
Well,
like,
nothing's unique about there in 2016, Donald Trump traveled around the country and he would bring the families of people who were victimized and by violent crimes and murder people in the country illegally. And the press would never write stories about them, never profile them. Reporters didn't know their names. They checked their phones during it. And no Democrat that I ever heard said, you know what, Donald Trump's right. I weep for these families, and I demand that our federal government shut down the border and protect us from violent people coming to this country illegally and doing harm to Americans. I don't understand it as a citizen and as a journalist. I don't understand how there's one party, which not exclusively, and I'm about to show you some exceptions, one party just doesn't evince natural, organic moral outrage about this.
So do you want us to put disproportionate attention on murders that happen when somebody is here illegally? Like when you give the example of Trump bringing families around, what's the end goal there?
People shouldn't have been here in the first place.
Yeah, to highlight the fact that
It
these
was
people
preventable,
should not,
easily
yeah.
preventable.
And that there's something screwed up about a system where a loved one could be killed by someone who shouldn't be here and who's only here because of the failure of the federal government.
I totally agree with everything you said, and Democrats should talk about it more.
All right. I said this morning I hadn't heard any Democrats express with moral clarity outrage about this guy being in the country illegally. And it was pointed out to me that I was wrong and had overlooked. I hadn't heard it, but I should have looked. Richie Torres, who comes on two-way with some regularity, congressman from New York, he did just that today in an interview on what's the guy's name, Noah? Guy with the podcast.
Sam Harris.
Sam Harris.
Sam Harris.
Here's Richie Torres, number 10, Sam, on Sam Harris's podcast, expressing, as he can do, moral outrage.
I feel like there is a recognition that we went too far left on immigration. But, I feel there needs to be a fundamental restructuring within the Democratic Party, a return to a rational center. But I worry that, Donald Trump is so aggressive that he is provoking a response.
Yeah.
That is, there's a divide between what I would say two teams in the Democratic Party. There's team restraint and team resistance, right? There are those in team resistance who feel like we should react hysterically to everything that Donald Trump says or does. And then there are those who feel like we should pick and choose our battles and be strategic. But I worry that the momentum is on the side of hysterical, hyperbolic resistance, and the enormous expenditure of time and energy and resistance might crowd out the restructuring and moderation that needs to happen within the Democratic Party.
John Fetterman said something similar about the immigration and his party. Amber, do you celebrate Democrats who speak like that?
It's hard to without an accompanying policy change. I mean, it's also like how real is it? Or as Adam would say, is it performative? After they said nothing about the Biden administration's policies, didn't vote for HR2, which would have exceptionally strengthened border security. After they've derided Trump as a racist and fascist for wanting to deport illegal immigrants, it's like, are you just saying this now because you got smoked in the last election and you're worried about the midterms? I just want to see something tangible to come along with the rhetoric.
Adam.
Was it Democrats who didn't vote for the border bill?
They did not vote for HR2, which was the Republican introduced bill prior to the so-called bipartisan border bill,
Oh, before the
which
link
had a
was out,
bevy
my
of
bad.
problems with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that intentionally tanked the border bill seems to have been Trump, the only top-down leader. I don't know if anyone else did. I think that, yes, of course, Democrats need to get their shit together when it comes to immigration. It's been an absolute mess. Biden dropped the ball from day one. I think that Democrats who speak like that are on the right track. I've been paying a little bit of attention to Taurus, but I think that's, yeah, Pete Buttigieg, a lot of people seem to be really waking up and having a more stern message. I think when we don't have a message, it opens up a vacuum for Republicans to essentially take a far right position. And I think Trump has done that. I think his aggressive deportations are, not where we need to be. I think there's a middle ground.
Okay. So grateful to you both. We're going to bring up one more topic and then go to your questions, or at least one more. So please raise your hand if you want to be in the conversation. Adam, what's your view of John Fetterman's mental state and his capacity to perform as a United States senator?
I've been reading the articles and it seems a little bit scary. It seems like something fundamentally changed after he had that stroke. And now, I mean, the one main article I read was the one about the mood swings and him getting like really angry.
Yeah.
It seems like the Democratic Party should throw him up on stage for president. No, I don't know. I mean, obviously he shouldn't be a senator, probably. He probably is not in a good mental state.
Okay. And is that point of view colored by your being a man of the left, although you're not a man of the far left, but a man of the left, and Fetterman has gone more to the center on some issues? Does that color your point of view?
No, there's not really many issues I disagree with him on.
Okay.
I mean,
So your objective view, unfreighted by ideological concerns, from what you've seen and read, is that he's having trouble keeping it together to perform the job of senator, right?
yeah, from the reports that
Okay.
I've read, I mean,
Okay.
I'm pro-Israel as well, like as
yeah.
much as he is, so that doesn't bother me.
Okay. Amber, what's your view on that specific point of whether the guy has it together to perform the job?
I definitely have some concerns about him. And like, to be fair, a lot of people were raising concerns while he was still running for office after
Yeah.
the stroke. And it
Yeah.
seems like these only got taken seriously, to your point, when he started expressing more centrist points of views or even more conservative points of views on things like Israel and the border. And so I have to question the motivation of the people pushing these stories in the mainstream media. Are these progressive Democrats who are upset with Fetterman for speaking out of turn with the party? Because otherwise, why weren't we having this conversation when he was still a candidate?
Well, you're right that they protected him when he was in a candidate, but Amber, just to slice the pepperoni a little thin here, you felt during the campaign, as many conservatives did, that the guy clearly didn't have it together. And my guess is you've seen nothing since then to make you change your mind. You just think the Johnny-come-latelys are motivated by politics, but their analysis, you believe, is spot on, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how I feel.
Okay. I thought that's where we'd come out, but just getting it on the record. Now, I've told you for months, Joe Biden, to this day, has good days and bad days. And if you saw the press conference, the gaggle he did on Friday, he still has good days. And this notion that it was weekend at Bernie's every day is not true. But he did have too many bad days to be president. But that doesn't mean every day is a bad day. Same with John Fetterman. Okay. People who think he has no good days are going to be disappointed because here's John Fetterman today. He did an event at the Kennedy Library in Boston with his Republican Keystone State Commonwealth of Pennsylvania colleague, Dave McCormick. And here's John Fetterman talking about the smears, what he calls them smears, of people saying he's missing votes because he's having mental issues. Roll that, please.
No, for me, it's very clear. It's just part of like this weird smear, this thing. And the more kinds of left kind of media continues to have these kinds of an attack, and it's just part of a smear, and that's just not it's just not accurate. I've always been there. And for me, if I miss some of those votes, I've made 90% of them. And we all know those votes that I've missed were on Monday. Those are travel days. And I have 3 young kids, and those are throwaway procedural votes that they were never determined if they were important. That's a choice that I made. And, of course, he did defend me through that. And he actually asked me, it's like, is it okay to defend you? I don't want that to create more political problems.
Thought it might hurt him.
Yeah, he did. And I'm like, no, I appreciate that. He and people recognize the smear in this process of this.
Again, I watched not the whole event, but I watched a lot of it. He was perfectly lucid and focused. He repeats himself a little bit there, but I do that too. Adam, what's your view after looking at that?
I still believe the multiple reports that I've read that his behavior behind the scenes is erratic and oftentimes scary.
Often, but not always.
No, I mean, if you're in that position of power, though, you probably should be lucid. I think we've learned that.
Yeah. Amber.
I suppose my concern now is actually less with the lucidity question, because it does seem like he's recovered that portion of it fairly well post-stroke. But the reports that were more concerning to me were about suicidality and sort of reckless and confusing behavior regarding mental illness. I mean, we obviously know that he had that stay at Walter Reed for his mental state not too long ago. And that's the element of it that I find a little disturbing.
All right. If you were a Pennsylvanian, would you be satisfied with his representation of you, Adam?
I think if you go back to the candidates, then over Dr. Oz, or it wasn't a Dr. Oz, then
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
Amber?
I'd be a mixed bag.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I have this Democrat that's representing me that is actually sounding more sane than most of his party, but at the same time is apparently not sane. So, who knows?
I'm not sure it's manifested in his policy much that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated thing. All right, let's bring folks in. Chris is from Georgia. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back, sir. Happy to have you here. Tell folks what's on your mind for Amber and for Adam.
Yes, I've got a comment and I've got a question for Amber. My comment is that trying to make this guy in Colorado part of the immigration problem is faulty logic. He came on a visa, a tourist visa. That's part of a process. He got a work permit after that. That's part of a process. So the fact that has nothing to do with open border policy. And Amber made the comment that this was totally preventable. Is there some way we have of knowing when you apply for a tourist visa that you might be a crazy terrorist? No, there's not. So it wasn't preventable because we can't guess who the crazy people are. My question for Amber is, I think I saw on your X page that you were celebrating Trump's challenges to the South African president when he visited, where he showed the video and the pages showing about the bad treatment of white Afrikaners. Was that you that posted that?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, have you apologized for the fact that the BBC and Reuters have clearly debunked at least half of what he said? Or do you want to stick to that misinformation that Trump spewed out into the universe?
And Chris asked that with peace, love, and understanding overflowing from his heart.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll take the first part if you don't mind on the immigration point. So the problem here is the process that you're referring to failed, because if someone overstays a visa and is illegally in the country, they should not be rewarded with a work permit. And if he had been removed at that point, instead of getting access to work here, then it would have been preventable. No, you can't tell if someone is necessarily going to commit a crazy violent act like that, but you can prevent all of these crazy violent acts by illegal immigrants by either not letting them in the country in the first place or removing them with expedited removal when they break the rules and don't follow the proper procedures for getting legal status. And instead,
Chris?
the Biden administration gave him a promotion, essentially.
Chris,
Yes.
what do you think of Amber's retort?
I believe that it is probably a fairly normal practice applied in many cases to let people get a work permit. So I'm not sure after their visa expires, I'm not sure that's a failure in the process per se.
I think if you break the rules, you shouldn't be rewarded. But let's talk about the South African president point, because I assume what you're referring to with the Reuters and BBC report was that one of the articles that Trump held up included a video screenshot in it in which they were talking about genocide in Zambia. The rest of the article, however, also included examples from South Africa. So they're trying to catch Trump on a technicality. But the broad point that he was making with the video is true. White farmers have been targeted in South Africa. I actually was traveling last weekend and I met someone whose husband came to the US as a political refugee when he was 8 years old because his family friends, his family members were all white farmers, and they had seen their friends raped and murdered by Black South Africans who wanted to take their farmland and punish them for an apartheid that they had nothing to do with. We actually have a reporter at the Daily Caller who just landed in South Africa today. And I can tell you, Chris, that he was racially profiled before he even made it to Johannesburg. While he was at the airport in Paris about to board his flight, he had a Black South African man come up to him and aggressively question him about being white and having a Dutch-sounding last name and demanding to know if he was a white South Africaner. And then he had to actually hand over his passport to prove that he was from the United States to prevent this man's further harassment. So if that's any indication of how the trip is going to go, I'm pretty sure that his report is going to come back and say that everything Trump identified in that Oval Office meeting was 100% correct.
Very quick rebuttal. Go read the BBC and Reuters reports. They make clear that he lied on more than one point. He also said there was this big grave site with all these crosses on it. That was also rebutted. There were several things in that thing rebutted. And your single anecdotal story, while cute and interesting, does not prove that there's some kind of overrepresentation of white farmers being attacked. What the government said was lots of farmers are getting attacked, and they have no statistical evidence that the white farmers are being disproportionately targeted.
Chris, I'm sure you didn't mean to say cute, so I'll give you an opportunity to take it back.
Interesting.
Okay, thank you for that. Amber, do you want to keep going?
Oh, yeah, just real briefly. So yeah, it wasn't a gravesite. Trump didn't acknowledge it as such. The video actually identified it as a memorial for white farmers who had been killed. It wasn't where they were actually buried. And then
he claimed to show a mass grave site.
That's not what the video said, but
that's what he said.
I don't remember him saying that it was a grave site. And what was your second point?
I think I've made enough points.
All right, Chris.
I remember. Chris said that that there's no evidence that white farmers are being targeted at disproportionately high rates. But if you compare the percentage of farmers who have been murdered in South Africa to the percentage of them that are white farmers, they are indeed overrepresented in that case.
Not true. I mean, it has to be a hell of a lot of white farmers getting attacked, since the white farmers control the vast majority of the land.
That I don't know the answer to. Chris, thank you.
You're welcome.
Adam, anything, good to see you. Adam, anything you want to say about all this?
One final point.
Yeah.
How can Biden be responsible for letting Solomon in if Biden was executed in 2020, according to Donald Trump?
What reposts on truth don't mean endorsement. How about that?
Did it say that in his bio, or is he the president?
I think that's implicit. Doesn't say it in my bio, but I retweet stuff all the time that I don't endorse.
Got to be careful. I mean, he's a president. He's retweeting schizophrenic conspiracies.
I agree with you. Let's get Amber on our side on this one. Amber, do you agree that the president shouldn't be reposting things like that.
Yeah.
I wish he
Looney-
just didn't repost because his reposts are usually pretty wacky.
Yeah. I'm going to ask Sean tomorrow in the morning meeting how that kind of thing happens. Because, like, that makes no sense.
Obviously, he
Peter-
doesn't believe it. Obviously, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Either he's
Yeah.
trolling us or it was a mistake.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's good analysis, Adam. Peter, welcome in. Washington, D.C. You're a swamp creature. Are you a lobbyist?
I am.
Are you a lobbyist for Nike, or you just like the clothes?
Oh, I just appreciate the dry fit, especially with the humidity and the summer months coming up here in DC.
Understood.
Uh,
Don't be in Washington from May 1 on till like November to November. It's a swamp. You know, the whole thing's built on a swamp.
It is. And
Peter, are you connected to the federal government?
no, not at all, really. I mean, I'm here as a grad student. I'm affiliated with Georgetown, and if you listen to Tucker Carlson, you know, I'd be already deeply involved with the federal government if it were as nefarious as he said.
What are you studying?
I do Russian studies at the School of Foreign Service.
And be more specific, Russian studies.
Yeah, so I'm interested in modern Central Asia and Russia and the kind of relations of the post-Soviet countries.
Are you getting a master's or a PhD?
I'm getting a master's for now. Yeah.
Yeah. Will you write a master's thesis?
Yes, I will. Yeah, I'm actually going to Kazakhstan shortly to do some research and to do some studies there. And I'm not entirely sure what the subject will be.
Yeah. Okay, but something related to Kazakhstan.
Yep. I've been interested in a lot of the emigres coming from Russia after the war, and kind of how their assimilation and maybe lack thereof has gone in that region. So
that's a good topic.
Yeah.
All right, what can we do for you? Question for Adam and Amber.
Yeah, a quick comment based on the topic that's been coming up in the two-way platform over and over about like the Chinese students. I just wanted to say, I think what's missing a little bit in the discussion is the fact that sometimes the Chinese students have things to offer domestic students from the United States that isn't immediately clear, like in a big macro analysis, right? Like I just think thinking back to college, some of the best interlocutors, some of the best debates, some of the best people I've had discussions with did happen to come from China. And it's fascinating. I think the experience in America shapes them in either a very pro-Western kind of anti-China direction or kind of a reaffirmation of what China is offering is really something quite good. But so I think it's just kind of, you know, from my perspective, I think they offer something too for domestic students, even though maybe the ratio is wrong. But my question is about Vance. I think it's kind of interesting, you know, Trump and Vance, you know, they both can go on these like podcast platforms and like Theo Vaughn and Rogan and that kind of thing. But I think Vance misses a little bit of that charisma element. I'm just kind of curious, like for Adam, you know, coming from kind of more Dem side, I just like, how do you compare the kind of charisma of Trump versus Vance? And like, is that going to be a big problem for Vance come 28 or not? Like, I think he can go on podcasts, but he's no Trump. Like, he's not as funny as Trump. So it's kind of my question.
In my opinion, a lot of Trump's power comes from the fact that his cult of personality can oftentimes primary or at least weaken any Republican congressman or congresswoman. So if JD Vance doesn't have that same cult of personality wrapped around his finger, he may not have the same leverage over the Republican Party. But when it comes to charisma, obviously Trump is a powerhouse on camera. This dude knows how to take advantage of headlines. He knows how to just, his stage presence is very, very unique. And JD Vance oftentimes seems like he's trying to model Donald Trump. I remember there was a JD Vance one time pointing at the press and made the crowd boo the press, but his heart just wasn't really in it in the same way Trump's heart is in it. So I don't think he has the same charisma or same, I think the charisma will be a problem for JD Vance. But that being said, he basically just reverts back to the mean, to like the average Democrat. He's like a Democrat from 2005 with charisma, whereas Trump is just his own thing, in my opinion.
I'm gonna let Amber respond too, but Adam, I think everything you say was brilliant. The only thing I'll say is, if you think Trump genuinely hates the press, you're wrong.
No, yeah. I'm just like, when I see JD Vance,
he's not as good at faking it as Trump, is what you're saying.
No, yeah, you can see it in his eyes.
Yeah,
this guy's not really about it.
Yeah. All right. Amber, thoughts on JD Vance and charisma?
I think it's true. Obviously, nobody has the same type of charisma that Trump has, or the same ability to capture headlines. I do think that Republicans have warmed to JD Vance a lot, with how he handles himself in adversarial interviews, which is more of his strength than the sort of showmanship that Trump demonstrates. But I do think it will be an open question as to whether or not the so-called MAGA coalition of the populist right can hang together without Trump as its leader when he's gone. I mean, we've only seen this coalition exist for the past 10 years with Donald Trump. And it's perhaps quite a fragile coalition, and might struggle without that really strong face at the top of it.
Great answer. Peter, thank you. Grateful to you. Good luck with your studies. Pro tip, have the yak. The yak is excellent. When you're over there in Kazakhstan, have the yak. All right, Amber, special present for you. Do you know Dan, Amber? You familiar with Dan?
Not.
All right, so if Adam is slightly left of center, right? Slightly left, Adam, is that fair?
Yeah.
So Dan would be more than that. Dan, you disappeared. Called on Dan, he disappeared. All right, maybe he'll come back.
Far left internet connection.
Yeah, far left. He's so far left, he left America. That's what they said about Walter Mondale, one of the great political lines ever. All right, Ann, welcome in. Unmute. Tell folks who don't know where you are here on the planet Earth. Now, Ann's disappeared too.
Oh, hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Welcome back. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, it's the first time I called several months ago, our morning meeting, first time calling here. I think that when it comes to immigration, I think Trump it'd be better targeted instead of, I've heard stories of them grabbing like 5 and 6 year olds out of their bed at night and deporting them. Obviously, they should focus on criminals. And even in this case where this guy obviously had anti-Semitic views. So I just think, I agree with you generally, but I think he could be better targeted. That's all.
Yeah. All right, Ann, great question. So guys, I got an email today from a very conservative Republican with a link to, I think it was a New York Times story, which you may or may not have read, about a person who's lived in a Midwestern community, I'm forgetting, I think Ohio, for like decades, and like a big part of this community who either was deported or is in the process of being deported. And this person said there's going to be a backlash, that deporting non-citizens who are embedded in the fabric of communities, or as Ann just suggested, children, is going to cause a backlash against the Trump administration. Amber, thoughts on that?
No, I think we should remove everybody who's here illegally.
Right, but do you think they'll understand your principle?
Oh, will there be a backlash?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, possibly. I mean, it depends, right? Because the polls show that people support mass deportation, that they want everyone removed, but then they don't like some of the tactics that are necessary to get there. So I think it's kind of mixed on how people will feel about that. But I mean, a lot of the stuff with the children, it's like they say that they're deporting children, and then you find out that it's actually parents who have chosen to take their American citizen children with them. So I haven't heard of the reports of 5 and 6 year olds who are here illegally being ripped from their beds. I've heard of children of illegal immigrants, going back with their mothers because they don't want to separate a family and keeping a child here by themselves.
Right. Adam, thoughts on the question of some of the less sympathetic cases and impact that would have on the debate?
Yeah, you see this with polling a lot. Like when you poll Americans and ask them if they want the government to be more efficient, most Americans say, yes, of course the government should be more efficient. Then you poll them on what they think about DOGE in particular, and they think the slash and burn method is a little bit too much. So you can poll most Americans and they say, yes, like deport people. But then when you come to individual cases, they don't really like it as much. I think that why not just do it in a way that doesn't necessitate backlash? I think that you can deport the criminals. No one will be mad about that. But why deport a woman who has been embedded with her community for a while? There was just a New York Times article, which might be the one you're referencing, Mark, where some woman who worked at a local coffee shop was deported, and she had like 2 kids in the nearby school. I just don't know. You're burning a lot of political goodwill when you deport someone like that. And then the next week, Solomon ends up burning people.
Ends up burning people? Is that what you said?
Lighting people on fire. My bad.
Oh, okay. No.
Isn't that his name? Solomon?
Yeah.
Muhammad Solomon something.
Yeah. Let me ask you both this. What is something that Donald Trump has done in the last month to calm the country? Something he's done the last month to calm the country. make people feel reassured? Anybody have an answer to that one?
Memorial Day. He
Memorial
sent out
Day.
a post. Wait, no, this is a bad example. It was an all caps post where he says
Yeah.
Happy Memorial Day. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Okay. So you're being
Well,
sarcastic.
the wreath laying ceremony was very nice.
Yeah. Adam, did that calm you? The wreath laying? Not
Sure.
necessarily.
I mean,
I
it's
just-
hard to go wrong with that. Like, what is he supposed to pull out his phone and truth something during that ceremony? Like,
Yeah. Rex, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Unmute. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, please.
I'm in Colorado. I live about 60 miles from Boulder. One of the things that I came across was a George Washington University paper that dealt with, hang on, let me bring it up here. It's called Hamas Networks in America, A Short History. And if you read that paper, it's fairly long. It basically lines out how Hamas wants to infiltrate the federal government. They're coupled with the Muslim Brotherhood, and many of the names of the characters involved in the different organizations, as you read the paper, are all interconnected. It's not like the Muslim Brotherhood is one organization all by itself over here, and Hamas is another organization over here. And do you think there's any connection between, I don't know if either one of you is familiar with it. Do you think there's any connection between that and the increase in anti-Semitic crime that you see right now?
Great question. Amber.
Sure, it's probably true. I mean, look at the Students for Justice in Palestine groups and the Sammy Dune Network, where they intentionally grab, sort of fragile teenagers who are kind of looking for their place in the world and trying to build community, and they kind of exploit that loneliness epidemic to get people feeling like they're involved in a cause that has greater purpose. And sadly, in this case, it's one that's quite destructive.
Adam.
yeah, foreign actors benefit a lot when they can sow chaos in the United States. We can see Qatar funding our universities relentlessly, and now funding the president of the United States travel relentlessly, it seems like. So I just think that you can draw the direct line between foreign actors trying to interfere with our social media, with our universities, and more anti-Semitism in America.
Rex, thank you. Grateful to you. Thank you. Adam, I want to bring something back up that you raised, which I got a lot of texts about today. Press is generally biased against Donald Trump, but he Truth Social reposts the thing about Joe Biden was replaced by, what did he say they were replaced by robots?
He was executed and replaced by a robot, I think. This one actually might be true, though.
Yeah. Just this dude, Amber, this dude's level of sarcasm, it surpasses my own. Why is that not getting more attention? And I know one explanation, and maybe you'll say it's the only explanation, is that Trump does so many things like this that we become a nerd to it. But there's got to be more to it than that. What would you say explains the president of the United States doing something that irresponsible and it not getting very much coverage?
He's the king of the troll. I mean, he loves this kind of stuff because he loves the reaction that he gets. And so maybe the media is finally wising up and not giving him the reaction.
Yeah. So Adam, let me take the devil's advocate position. Trump sees that and he thinks it's funny. So it's not a troll. It just, he thinks it's funny. I retweet, funny, pictures of cats doing things. Now, I'm not president, but he's a citizen. If he wants to retweet things he thinks are funny, is that okay? Or he shouldn't do it?
As a president of the United States, I would say you probably should not be posting stuff when you already have an impressionable audience. Like, I would make the argument that Truth Social is likely filled of his most loyal supporters, meaning these are people who believe what he says and what he reposts. These are probably impressionable people in the first place. So the president of the United States, in my opinion, should be a little bit more careful with what they repost or what they say on social media. Yeah. All right. You go ahead. Finish. Sorry. Oh, it's not illegal. It shouldn't be illegal or anything, but morally, you probably shouldn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're two young, hardworking, ambitious people. although apparently you both could leave journalism at any moment. Are you taking time off this summer? If so, how much and what do you plan to do, Adam?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to South Carolina, I think, with my family. I think I'm gonna Yeah, I've just been enjoying Chicago's summer a lot lately. I've been going out on the weekends a lot more than I did during the winter and during the campaign cycle. I was inside a lot to a fault. So I've just been really living and enjoying my life as a 22-year-old.
If you're in your 20s, Chicago from the spring to the early summer, one of the great places to be in the world. Truly.
Great. Yeah,
It's just
awesome.
incredible. And you get carded 80% of the time?
They're strict. It's like Secret
Yeah.
Service when I'm walking in. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Amber, what about your summer plans?
Well, I actually just took a trip to Portugal for 5 days. Got back last Tuesday. It was incredible. But otherwise, I've got a couple of weddings. I've got one in Chicago and another one up in New Hampshire. So that's the extent of the rest of my travel plans for the summer. Trying to save back up after the Portugal trip.
Maybe the two of you can get together in Chicago. Just
That'd
a
be
thought.
great.
Just a
Do
thought.
some debate
do
in
it.
the two-way style, no yelling.
Yeah. Only European country I've never been to.
It was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
It has like elements of Morocco, but also a very distinctly European vibe. Really fascinating place. Very warm people, great food, great wine. Really loved it.
All right,
Wonderful
fine.
weather.
It's supposed to be great. I got to go. Final two questions. Amber, first, one piece of advice to a young aspiring journalist.
Don't do it.
Would that really be your advice?
Yes and no. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm joking, but not really. It's I mean, it's a tough profession, right? You have to hold yourself accountable consistently. I'm going to do it right now. I was wrong about Trump saying that the crosses weren't mass grave sites. He did say that. I still don't think it blows up the narrative that there, or the story about there being a white genocide in South Africa. So, I mean, you can again catch him on not getting a fact right, but overall the story is correct about genocide in South Africa. But also it's a lot of long hours when you're first starting out, very low pay. It's a very thankless job, and it's hard now as well. I mean, with the new media people, like I think there's an element of grift involved in it that helps to discredit some of the conservative media that really is committed to fact-based journalism and tries to do things the right way. And so I think that there's for both mainstream media and conservative independent media, there's a lot to be concerned about.
All right, Chris, you're welcome. Adam, advice to young journalists about the grift.
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider myself as much of a journalist. But I mean, advice, the one advice that I would give anybody is everybody has ideas on what they want to do. Like everybody watching this has their own unique idea, but executing on that idea is what makes you different. Like in my early days, going to all these different Trump rallies and having these conversations in a unique way allowed me to execute. And I don't know, it just be different, be unique, and execute. Just do it.
All right, last question. What's in the realm of the possible, not the likely, but the possible, what's the best thing for the planet Donald Trump could accomplish this year? Amber.
For the planet? Oh,
Yeah.
Not for America.
No, for all of the
That's
world.
very globalist of you, Mark.
Yeah.
For all of the world, I would love to see an end to a lot of these conflicts, the Russia-Ukraine war, what's been going on in the Middle East. I think that would probably be the best thing he could do globally.
Adam.
Yeah, probably ending the Russia-Ukraine war in a favorable position for Ukraine.
Yeah. Who will leave power first, Zelensky or Putin? Amber.
Zelensky.
Obviously, what kind of question is that? Leave power?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As if Zelensky's holding on to power?
Well, I don't know.
His constitution says they can't hold an election during wartime. They literally would not be able to do that right now.
Well, he could quit.
Right now, why would he quit? Why would he destabilize an already destabilized country when he's like
I don't know.
figurehead?
I don't know. He might be tired.
Charlie Kirk had this clip really quickly where he said that Zelensky should just call an election right now, override the Constitution. So Charlie Kirk's argument is simultaneously that Zelensky is a dictator who can override the Constitution, and that at the same time, I don't even know, Ukraine, it's just insane. I don't know. The clip is, I can't remember exactly what he says.
I'll go take a look. I'll go take a look.
Yeah, I'll send it.
I'm so grateful to you both. I love having you on, and I hope you'll come back regularly. And I hope you'll both stay in journalism or whatever it is Adam does. Amber, I hope those weddings are good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Thank you all for watching. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll be back here with Sean and Dan for a little program we call the Morning Meeting. And then tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Michael Moynihan will be here on the Moynihan Report. His guest will be sports writer Mark Kriegel. If you haven't checked out the Moynihan Report yet, I urge you to do so. And then, of course, in 23 hours, this show inexplicably will be on again. So I'll see you then. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, season's greetings, and have a good night.